So this morning, after taking some wild reishi, I had a little insight that I want to share with you. And it's basically something that when we understand it, when we apply it, will truly open up the path to being happier and healthier and just overall actually being more alive, being more in our body, being more present. So the thing we need to understand is that nature in itself is chaotic. Life is chaotic. And that's not necessarily chaos with a negative connotation. That's just life is always changing. If you look at a river, it's always flowing, it's always moving, it's always, regenerating itself and just flowing and shifting and always just in flux. And that's exactly how life is. The weather is always changing. The wind is always blowing in a different way. The clouds are forming in a different way. No day is the same. There's a saying, you can't put your foot in the same river twice because life is always flowing and changing, right? So this is just the fundamental nature of the universe. This is how the universe works. Our cells are always changing, always regenerating, growing, turning over, dying, growing, on and on and on. So if that's the nature of the universe and we want to be happy and healthy and have a harmonious life, we should try to model and be in harmony and imitate what nature does, what the universe does. So in order to do that, we have to change it up. We have to break our patterns and understand that if life is, this process of change and chaos, that we need to introduce this into our lives. So ultimately, to do this, we can look at water. We need to be like water. Because if you look at it, water hates to go in a straight line because when it does, that's when it stagnates, and that's when we have to add chemicals to it so that it won't grow, bacteria and algae and all these things. But if you watch water in a creek, in a stream, and where it's flowing, it's always rolling over itself and curving around and doing all these more, spiral kind of patterns. But basically, we are water. We're 70+% water. So you got to think this. On one way, you can say it in a very metaphorical way, be like water. But we can take it a step further and say that we are actually water. We're mostly water. And water obviously doesn't like to go in a straight line. It doesn't like to stay in the same patterns, the same grooves, the same routines, because it stagnates. So likewise, we can assume that since we're water doesn't like to go in straight lines and patterns because it stagnates. That if we go in straight lines and we go in patterns, we'll stagnate as well. And that on top of that, if the nature of the nature of the universe is chaos and constant change, and we're stuck in patterns and we're not changing, we're out of harmony with the universe, we're out of harmony with nature, we're also stagnating ourselves and out of harmony with ourselves because we're stuck in patterns. So we have both of those two things that we're just kind of fighting against and going upstream against. So obviously that's going to create, ill health and, a diminished state of happiness and well-being and energy and vitality and all of those things. And that's very common sense. You can understand this right now and apply it right now. And, when I'm talking about chaos, it's not, like I said, chaos in just some sort of negative connotation where I think you should just take your schedule and throw it away and just do everything on a whim. Because that's really imbalanced and that's really unintelligent. Because if you look at nature, I'm saying there's a pattern in everything that happens. If you look at the grain in wood, or the patterns in wood, the spirals, or the different lines, or the way trees grow, it doesn't look like it was just thrown together, but there's some sort of pattern there, but we can't really put our finger on what it is. Or likewise, the markings in jade, or cloud formations, or the way water flows. It's not just a bunch of random stuff and a bunch of scribbles. Like if you gave like an infant a pen and it just started scribbling, it's just random and you can't make any sense of it. It's not like that, but it's an order, it's a sense that we can't really put our finger on. It's an organization that we can't really box up and write an equation for. Likewise, that's the kind of order, the kind of balance that we can model and imitate and bring into our lives. Now, we have lives, we have relationships, maybe have jobs, we have schedules that we have to adhere to. So I'm not saying just abandon all of that and just do whatever you want on a whim. I'm saying that, we can change it up simply and easily by taking a different route to work, eating a different way, eating a different time, showering at a different time, just like very simple, minimal things to just always be kind of changing things up. Even within strict boundaries, there's room for improvisation and for change and for growth and for experimentation and for modeling these concepts of chaos and for being more like water, for being more flowing and for being more spontaneous and just introducing chaos and change into our lives, into our experience so that we can feel just more alive and healthier and happier, because that's the nature of the universe and that's what water likes, and since we are water, we should probably follow that pattern and be in harmony with that. So that's something I just realized this morning, or not even realized it for the first time, but it just kind of dawned on me as I just had taken some wild reishi tincture that I just made, and it just kind of popped out. So just wanted to share that with you. Hopefully it's helpful. If you have any questions or comments, post them below, and I'll talk to you soon.